Let me just hit that recorder. So this is CiC's webinar for January 2021. We're looking to the future, which, like I said, is one of the more difficult things to do at the moment. And we'll start with that, actually. Many of us have barely become okay with, kind of existing in the present at the moment. So looking to the future can feel really difficult and even impossible. And so first and foremost, take care. This is going to take real little steps. Don't expect too much of yourself, especially when planning for the future at the moment, because looking to the future is so hard at the moment, mainly because of the world being so uncertain. We don't really know what's coming next. Now, there's a kind of twofold thing here, psychologically speaking. Sometimes because the future seems so difficult, we just forget about it. We feel like we forget about it. We just think, whatever, I'll deal with that when things are back to normal. The other thing it can do is it can start to make us worry a bit more. We can get stuck in these versions of the future that don't exist yet, that are negative. So I want to do so as much as possible, staying in the present while looking to the future. I know that sounds a bit confusing and maybe like I'm saying the same thing twice, but I'll try and explain myself a bit more clearly. What I mean is looking to the future only when I have a really clear understanding of how things are for me in the present. Otherwise, we can get caught up in what we call catastrophizing, which is this kind of floating away into the future, a future that's uncertain and it's irrational. And look, usually I end up dead, injured, divorced, fired, all of those things in these versions of the future. So I want to do it with a bit more reality. So what I'm doing there is I'm taking care of my emotions. So many times when we talk about goal setting, and we'll look at this in a bit more detail, we think of the practicalities, but we don't think of our emotions. So yes, the future may feel impossible to look at. Certainly for me here in London, I know you guys will be from all over the place, all over the world possibly. So the future might feel really impossible to look at. But for here in the UK, it's cold, it's grey, we don't get a lot of daylight. I know I don't get to see a lot of daylight outside of working hours. So spring and renewing and life and sunshine might feel quite far away, particularly as we are really close to what is supposed to be the most difficult time of the year for positivity. Yesterday was Blue Monday. You've probably heard this phrase. This is not just something someone made up. Well, kind of something someone made up. Someone mathematically calculated what is the most difficult time, and it's to do with our well-being being affected. It's to do with going through a difficult period of time over Christmas, which many of us did this year. It's to do with the amount of debt that we might be in and the financial difficulties we're in, which is happening for a lot more people at the moment, mainly because of the economic hit we've taken because of COVID as well. So we are talking about the future at the hardest time of our lives for positivity. So this is why we need to try and find positivity in the present so that we can plan for a positive future. I mean, and how many of you listening, do it by a show of hands or just type your name out in chat or just, give us a wave. How many of you have broken the New Year's resolution or some goal that you set yourself early on in the year? And rather than celebrating the days that you did manage to keep to that resolution, you focus on the failure. This is going to be much more common at the moment, again, because of that difficulty in finding positivity. I've never really understood why we set New Year's resolutions. That's at a time when I need to really just do whatever I like and hibernate a little bit and take care of myself. Let's try spring or summer resolutions, I think, next year. So someone here said, my diet lasted 8 hours prior to the lockdown announcement. Well, 8 hours is better than many people can manage. So this is what I mean by focusing on and celebrating the things that you did manage to do. And there's a good bit of an emotional cue in there, I think, for us. And thank you for sharing that. The lockdown announcement. What was it about that announcement that made you think, screw it, no need for a diet. I need to, I need to look after myself in other ways. Really interesting there. Thank you. James said to everyone, I accidentally ate some non-vegan chocolate in Veganuary. I did not feel bad. Good. That's really good for you, especially if it was an accident. I think we're all allowed to have accidents as human beings. Hyper says, I agree, no New Year's resolutions for me. Good. And someone said here privately, I always do that. I've learned not to have New Year's resolutions. Yeah, they can be a real something that we bash ourselves over the head with. It's so great of you all chiming in. I really appreciate it. I'll pick these up as we go along. Sarah said, I never start a New Year's resolution till at least the second week in January. That's brilliant. That's a good thing. So you're really thinking about what suits you best and looking after yourself. Darren says, what is the point in January? Let's enjoy being stuck in the house as much as possible. Melissa says, my partner set me a resolution to stop dropping my phone. That lasted a few days. Peter says, I choose not to set any and haven't broken them yet. Good. And Joanna says, yes, I've had a few extra comfort food calories. Exactly. So we know the things that we want and we know what we want to do, yet we try and set intentions that we don't want to do and then punish ourselves from failing at them. You can see there can be a bit of a double negative here. So small steps, yeah. Fear of failure can prevent you from starting in the first place. Some people would like to, let's say dry January, that's been quite a positive, popular one this year. Some people might want to do that for their health, but it feels really difficult for them. And because they fear failing, they don't do it in the first place. Rather than a small step by saying, I'm not going to have a drink tonight, I'm going to relax in another way. And just getting one little win under our belt and taking it small steps at a time. I think that's going to serve us much, much better, particularly in these uncertain times. So, trying to set goals. Again, I've said that I'm not always the biggest fan of this because it can really harm us. So I want to do it really, really carefully, especially at a time like this. So first and foremost, let's define what we mean by a goal. A goal should not be about achieving and just ticking things off a list. It should be about things that we are looking forward to and working towards, things that we really want to achieve. If it's just, paying all our bills, those are tasks. We can put those down as tasks and achieve them. But our goal overall might be reducing the anxiety we feel around all of our life admin that we have to do. Does that make sense? So a goal is the overarching thing, and then those little things can be tasks within it. So appreciate. That's my first step. Like I said at the beginning, I want to appreciate the positives of where I am now, the things that I have managed to do. I can't remember who it was that shared it earlier, but your 8-hour diet, you've shown that you can go for 8 hours on this diet. Maybe try 9 or 10 hours next time. Yeah? Slowly ramping these things up rather than suddenly trying to change our lives while not thinking about our emotions. Yeah, and I do this little process of questioning myself. My walls get a lot of conversation at the moment, but questioning myself, what do I want and what do I need? How soon do I want or need to reach this goal? And I want it to be kind of achievable. I don't necessarily want to put a goal, for the end of this year. I might want to put something just a few months ahead so that I've got a point I can check in on it. Now, if it's a huge goal that I know is going to take me a few years to achieve, it might be starting a family, starting a new career, whatever it is, I want little check-in times along that way. So I want shorter time where possible. Someone said here privately, sorry, Harry, quick question. Would you share the material via email? Yeah, we're going to send an email out to everyone that arrived with a recording of the session and a copy of the slides as well. So no need to worry about that. So yeah, how soon do you want or need to reach this goal? Try and put, checkpoints in place. And what steps do you need to take to get you there? So those are those little tasks along the way. Yeah? Things are unpredictable at the moment, so we must be flexible and willing to compromise. If I set out inflexible and uncompromisable goals at the moment, I'm setting myself up for failure. If I do achieve it, it won't feel any better than any other goal, but because things are changing all the time, I'm likely to have to adjust my final goal or the end point that I'm trying to achieve. And that's because we're trying to set goals in a pandemic. I've never been through one before. I don't know if any of you have, so I don't know what's coming next. Now, one of the things that we've found at the moment is the amount of time that we're spending comparing our experience to other people is massively on the rise. Normally, I share how I'm doing with people close to me, and that stops me really from comparing stuff because I'm taking part in it. Now we're spending a lot more time online, we're reading a lot more news online or seeing it on TV or on social media, and all I can do there is compare myself to a version that I'm seeing. That might not even be the reality, as we know, but it's unhealthy. I also might be comparing myself to a version of myself in the past. I'm going to use a little bit of an example as a thread through this presentation. I've recently decided to take up a hobby that I had a long, long time ago when I was a teenager. And I've started out thinking, okay, so that's where I left off, so I should start at that point now. How could I possibly, it's an active hobby, how could I possibly be as good at that hobby if I haven't done it for 15, 20 years and I don't even know where to start? So don't compare yourself to other people and don't compare yourself to versions of you in the past, especially if it's versions of you before the pandemic, because there were lots more things possible then that aren't possible now. And I like to put backup plans in place as well. This is really important for large goals. I've had so many clients coming to me and saying, I had this big thing planned. Maybe it was a holiday. For many people, it was a big event like a wedding or a big birthday party, and they feel like the pandemic has taken that away from them. So let's put some adjustable goals in place with an A, B, and C. I need to have a plan A, i.e. things go exactly as I want. I can have let's say my wedding, I can have my wedding in whichever way I like. I need a plan B for if the pandemic is still affecting things a bit and I have to adjust my perfect day wedding to fit around some of those rules and regulations. And then I also want the plan C for if the pandemic makes it completely impossible, what am I going to do with all my resources and what am I going to do with my emotions, most importantly, if that happens. So this A, B, and C can really help. Mark here said goals should be short, medium, and long term and easily adapted. You've put what I've tried to say in 2 slides into 1 sentence, so maybe you can have a go at this next time. Cheers, Mark. That's perfect. Yeah. Ivor says, I just deleted my social media accounts in the end. As someone who's initially extremely vulnerable to the virus, it was awful. I felt so different from everyone else out there, although I knew rationally I'm not completely alone in my vulnerability. You've put that beautifully too there, Ivor. Absolutely. It's so much easier for us to compare ourselves to others on social media. Particularly what we do is we tend to make us the worst person. If you watch some of the documentaries out there about social media, there's kind of a design in there. There's a kind of purchasing power in making people feel crappy about themselves, basically. So trying to avoid that is really useful, especially when we know, and this is what I'm going to talk about in the next slide about emotions. But when we know our emotions are being affected, why would we tug on those strings even more by exposing ourselves to information that we know can be unreliable and unhelpful to us? I'm a big fan of expressing disappointment. Sometimes that is shouting a little bit too loudly than my little flat will allow. Sometimes it's just about speaking to someone I care for, someone that I trust, I can share my disappointment with. But if we do not express our disappointment at goals needing to be adjusted or goals not being met, we internalize that disappointment and we can only blame ourselves. Yeah, we keep that internal and we don't want to do that. We need to externalize. I talk a lot in these presentations and as a therapist about making the implicit explicit. It might be absolutely obvious to everyone that I've said I'm going to give up smoking, and then the next time they see me, I've got a fag in my hand. So, okay, well, let's express disappointment. Let's make that implicit thing that everyone can tell. Let's make it explicit. I tried really hard. My emotions got the better of me. I'm going to try again in a couple of weeks. Even just saying that out loud quiets my anxiety, stops me worrying what other people think of me, and most importantly, stops me thinking negatively about myself. Yeah, I've added cynically there. Yeah, cynicism really grows in these things. Try to remind yourself it won't always be this way. Don't take how you feel now as how you will feel forever. And this is really, really important when we're setting goals at the moment. I might be looking forward to my big holiday this summer. It's been planned. In fact, it was planned for last summer, but it had to be shifted to this summer. I'm really looking forward to it, but I feel very scared about it now. I cannot imagine myself right now stepping on a plane and going to the other side of the world. But I also know that I'm going to feel different about this in a month's time, even more different in 2 months, and different still as we get closer and closer because things are changing all the time. So constant reminders of that is really important. Otherwise, we feel quite stuck. Things feel impossible. And the more our motivation drops, the less we feel able to do things, the more we put things off, the more we procrastinate. And always be trying to enjoy the present. Goals are much harder to achieve when our mood is low. If I get up this morning and I'm feeling crappy, even though I've tried to give up coffee and caffeine, I'm much more likely to just go and grab one, rather than thinking carefully about what I can do to enjoy the day, rather than wallowing in my negativity or my sadness. And for some of us, You might even be some of you on this presentation here. You come to this presentation about goal setting, but even though we're talking about it, and as I start describing it, goals feel really difficult and really impossible for you. So I think it's very, very, it's very, very hard for me to set a goal when I don't even know where to start. So simply set intentions for the short term. And I really like, I put it in green here, start with the things you know you can control, like routines. I know when I'm supposed to be starting work tomorrow, and I can be in charge of when I get up and get out of bed. So can I put up a little goal to try and improve that, finesse that morning routine, get that as good as possible? Because the better my morning routine is, the better my mood is, the better my productivity is, and then I might find goals a little bit easier to set. So for those of you listening to this thinking it's still impossible, just start with small intentions to change the things that you can control. Our friend here, Haifa, in the chat said deleted his social media accounts. Beautiful. Yeah? That's a small intention. I might want to try and starting with a day off from social media, or a couple of days off and then a week, and then slowly move it into a goal. Yeah. And this is the important thing that I mentioned at the top of the presentation. Goals involve our emotions, yet so often when we're working with goals and intentions, we forget our emotions. We try and use logic. We try and trick ourselves into changing behaviors that involve our emotions. Everything that we do involves our emotions, unless it's some animal instinctual reaction. So what we tend to do is we try and overthink things. We try and trick ourselves. Rather than expressing those emotions, rather than tuning into them, we try and think our way around them. And that doesn't work for us because we are emotional, social creatures. So don't overthink it. Just try and go through a few steps. And I tried my best to make this as accessible as possible, but it actually is really, really difficult to pay attention to your emotions at the moment because the emotions are tricky. So what I've done is I've put down some practical things we can do that will help us involve our emotions in our goal setting. First of all, preparation. Before I've even decided to set out on my journey towards my goal, before I'm even at step one, I want to prepare. So that means getting all the things I need around me, whether it's a hobby I'm talking about and I need certain materials, whether it's I need some information, maybe I need a book or two, something like that. Get all the things that you need around you. That preparation stage is really important for making us feel kind of nested in our goal. Yeah? Remember, human beings, we're quite a lot like animals. We like to feel comfortable and at home in our nest. So we get everything set up ready for us. And then we start looking at how this task is going to unfold. And that's the first thing that I normally have when I'm starting a task is a lot of questions. Usually I zoom straight online and try and Google them and try and find out answers to them. But that doesn't really involve me. That involves other people's information that they've put out there and me trying to understand it. It's much better if I can find people to ask questions of. Back to that example of this hobby I've decided 20 years later to pick up again. If I tried to answer these questions just by doing research, I wouldn't have found out a lot of the detail that I did by asking other people. I went online, I found forums where people talk about this hobby, and I got myself involved. That was a bit of a step for me. I'm not a huge online involved person all the time. And so it took quite a lot for me to sign up for an account to a forum, make my first post saying, look, I'm new, I'm coming back to this, any advice appreciated. I think I had 24, 25 responses within the first evening of just people answering my questions because it's good for them. It feels nice for them to get involved with someone coming back new to the hobby, and I got a lot of help from it. So don't be afraid to ask questions, especially right at the outset. It boosts your confidence. It makes you feel part of a community in what you're doing. Even if it's a work goal, start asking colleagues and peers. And also it gives us a support system so that if we have further questions in the future, I know exactly how to reach out to people, and I know that I'm going to get those answers, and they're going to be nice, friendly people. And then review. Remember, I said put those review steps in place. Don't just sit there thinking, right, my goal is by the end of this year to achieve X, Y, and Z. Have I got X, Y, or Z? No, not yet. Okay, back to the grindstone. I mean, go and speak to someone. Or if you haven't got anyone around you, speak to yourself. Just say it out loud. Okay, I'm going to review my goal. Let's see how far I've got. What I've done is I've prepared so far. I've got loads of information around me. I've asked a few questions, so I know a bit more where to start. Actually, though, there was one big question I had that I never quite got the answer to. let's go back there and ask that again. That's what that review stage does for us. And if we can do it with someone else, it's really good because conversation allows us to adjust and it introduces new ideas. Even if I have, and look, this is not going to come as a surprise speaking to a therapist, I do think that conversations are a really good way of getting us involved in these things. Even if I speak to someone and they don't understand me at all, that at least teaches me that, gosh, I'm trying to explain something really complicated. Maybe I can simplify it a bit, and I go back to the drawing board a little bit again. Yeah. So those review stages are really important. We should always be sharing our progress, our ideas, and our emotions with other people. These are vital bits of information. Again, they're vital bits of information that we often leave implicit. We often don't share them with other people. I was watching a TV show the other day, and someone planned out a whole new life fork for themselves, a whole new career, and it wasn't till right towards the end of the episode that they shared it with their partner. So, oh, okay, well, I'm involved in this plan as well, and then all of a sudden the emotions suddenly ramp up to 100% because the emotions have been ignored the whole way along. Yeah, and that's why we can sometimes get shocked. That's why we can sometimes get surprised by our emotions. So don't ignore them. They're absolutely vital pieces of information. And we need to set good boundaries. I recognize some of your faces and names. You've been to my presentations before. This will not be new to you. I love speaking about boundaries. We must set good boundaries and protect our time. One of the big things that we need to reach and achieve any goal is time, either spent working on it, spent thinking about it, spent reviewing it, whatever the things we've talked about today. So setting good boundaries protects our time and it gives us space to think. That is so much harder to do at the moment than you could ever imagine. I can put it into one sentence really, really easy. How many of you have spent a whole evening distracted recently? Maybe you're watching TV, but you're also playing on your phone, or you're also trying to do a bit of work, or you're doing something else. Focusing on one task at the moment is really, really hard. Procrastination is at an all-time high. So set good boundaries. Set yourself a boundary of, for 15 minutes, I'm going to pay attention to this goal. Even if it really annoys me and really frustrates me, I'm going to be honest about that. I'm going to say out loud that I'm annoyed and frustrated by this. And if by the end of the 15 minutes I haven't moved any further, that's fine. I've at least engaged with it for 15 minutes and I know it's a really tough thing to do. Yeah. So set these boundaries. Look at your diary after this presentation. When can you find time for focusing on what you want and need? I don't know how many of you use Outlook, but I've started getting these daily emails that tell me, here's your best time and here's your best focus time. So I think I know that best. It's nice of you to try, Microsoft. It's very kind of you, but it's much better if I set it for myself. Because if I know it sounds a bit silly, but if an AI sets it for me, it's not paying attention to my emotions. All it's paying attention to is the things that it can see that I do, the actions and stuff like that. It's not taking into account, actually, I hate meetings at 4 o'clock because I start to feel like the end of my day is being eaten up and then I'm going to have to do emails into the evening time, etc., etc., etc. That's not good focus time for me. So look at your diary yourself as a person, as an actual human being, and think when I can find time for focusing on what I want and what I need. We can do this professionally and personally, by the way. I can think about the things I need and want to do personally. I can also think about the things I need and want to do professionally. And that should be part of our working week or month anyway, spending some time reviewing the work we've done and thinking about what our goals are for our work. Yeah. And try and schedule as part of this things to do away from access to technology. I never want to demonize access to technology at all, but we've already seen in the comments and some of the things here how that can be a little bit harmful. We've also seen how it can provide a load of resources and a load of answers to your questions, which is great. But sometimes our brain needs a different mode. And if we're spending all day on a computer working and then all evening on a computer trying to relax, our brain's not really in a very productive mode. It's in an input-output mode. It's a bit more robotic. Yeah. So we want to spend some time away from that and just spend some time thinking about things before we get started. We are so used to getting things done so quickly these days. I don't know about you, but I've got like 3 or 4 apps on my phone where if I decide I want to eat food from pretty much anywhere in the world, it can be at my door within half an hour. That's crazy. That's an amazing time that we're in technologically speaking. But it means I might not spend as much time really thinking about what I want and what I need, because things are so accessible. So don't wait to be invited to switch off. People will not invite you. One of the things that we've heard reported to us at CiC as the biggest stresses on people at the moment is this inability to switch off from work in the evenings, finding it so difficult. So put good boundaries in place. Have a look at your diary and think, okay, next week I'm going to finish at 5 on Monday, 6 on Tuesday, 5 on Wednesday, whatever it is. Be flexible. We know things change, but put a little marker in place about when you would like to be finishing work on those days. It's so much easier when it gets darker at about 4 p.m. It's so much easier for me to think, well, it's nighttime already and I'm working, so I'll just work all the way through till bedtime. Much easier for us to neglect ourselves in that way. So try and not be invited to be switched off, because I know many people work in roles where you would expect someone would tell you you've been working too hard. I don't hear a lot of it happening. It's nice when people are working hard. What doesn't help our mood? I put this in because I presented this back in December. This was our kind of winter wellbeing webinar. And I wanted to highlight a few of the points here because they really affect the way that we move towards our goals, or the way our mood affects our goals. Sure, worrying about things we can't control will affect our mood. And that's a big part of goal setting as well at the moment, actually. Ruminations, what if? The thing I find really difficult at the moment is, they say, this hindsight is 2020. Well, 2020 is in my hindsight, and I do often find myself ruminating. Well, what if? What if the government had done this? Or what if me and my family had run away to a small island? Would we be better off? And all sorts of mad ideas come to my head, particularly at night time or in the shower for some reason. All these ideas come to my mind, but they don't help. There's nothing I can do to change the past, especially when I'm looking at goals. Media and social media speculation is just really hurting us generally at the moment. We know that. Let me know in the chat if any of these really stand out for you. If you find yourself doing one of these a lot of the time and you'd like a bit of tools and tips on how to do something different, let me know and we can give you those. But the big ones that we're looking at here, unhealthy comparisons, we know that they don't help our mood, and they're going to really affect our mood in relation to our goals if we keep that up. Self-neglect and giving up, again, like with our diets or with our New Year's resolutions, if I give up and then punish myself for giving up, I'm in this real negative spiral. It's going to be much more difficult for me to set positive goals. Many of us withdrawing from social contact, of course, losing our independence, and then excess, not looking after ourselves physically. And then finally, this burnout from lack of boundaries. I can do so much work setting myself a lovely long list of goals. I can put it up on the wall in front of my desk, wherever I want to put it. But if I don't set good boundaries about when I'm going to spend time doing these things, I'm much more likely to burn out, especially if I'm doing a bit of above and not looking after myself with excess and abuse of substances. So try and think about how you can improve your mood by lessening those unhealthy comparisons, spending time self-caring rather than self-neglecting, and putting in good boundaries so that you can separate your work and life modes. And yeah, watch out for these. Look, again, I'm never here to demonize these things. These things make up an important part of some people's lives, and that we can get stuck in them a little bit, but just look at why you might be using these things. If I'm having some booze tonight, instead of expressing how upset I am that I didn't achieve my goal, I'm doing two negative things, because I'm not expressing myself and I'm also burying the problem with booze. The problem will still be there tomorrow. Yeah. You'll find, perhaps, if you're able to express your disappointment, you might be less likely to move towards coping strategies. Pay attention to those. Now on to the positives. What does help our mood? And you're going to get bored of me saying this, but it's rest. It doesn't mean doing nothing. It means switching off. It means, and I love that this fits one of those acrostics, because I haven't done one of those since I was at secondary school, I think. They're still cool. Don't judge me. Rest. It doesn't mean doing nothing. It means reconnecting with other people. That's rest, yeah. With others if you're lonely, or with yourself if you found yourself too busy. Many of you living in busy families who've got a busy family life and a busy work life need some time to yourself. That is not selfish. That doesn't mean you don't love your family. It just means you need some space to think. And many of us are feeling lonely. We haven't seen a lot of people for a long time. That doesn't mean we shouldn't reconnect. Even think of reconnecting to colleagues. I know when I was in our office, and it was the other side of London, so I'm kind of happy I don't have to commute there all the time, but it's that a metre and a half away from people that I now haven't spoken to properly for nearly a year. I haven't spoken to them at all. I used to know everything that was going on in their lives. I used to know what they had for lunch every day. And yet now I don't see them. I don't speak to them at all. I don't really know what I could do other than, sending out a few emails and reconnecting with people. But do this. Try it with friends. Try it with family members. Exercise. I'm not going to say much more about that. It's annoying, but it's true. It does help our mood. We know that. Seek support. Get things in place and ready at hand. Like I said, when we're starting our goals, we want to, get all the materials we need around us. Some of those materials are people. Some of those materials are our support structure, the people we lean on when things goes wrong. We need to know who they are and where they are. And then take time. Again, setting those boundaries so that you can take time to think and set goals. Really, really important. The picture there, if anyone's interested, is a picture of Epping Forest, which is not too far from me. It's one of my favourite places at the moment because it allows me to reconnect with myself if I've been a bit too busy and spend some time alone. It allows me to socially reconnect with other people. It allows me to get a bit of exercise, just a little stroll in the forest. But I'm speaking. I'm seeking support either from myself or from other people, and I'm thinking. I'm away from technology. I'm not being bombarded with information. I'm actually spending time with my information in my brain. Sarah Shed, I recognise a lot of these things that don't help my mood. Today I've just discovered that having a favourite song on the radio that lifts my mood up load is helping. Yeah, really good. I always used to have an exercise playlist when I was going to the gym a bit more often. And for some reason, every other playlist I have, I would always have on shuffle because I like being surprised. But this exercise one, there's these certain set of songs in this certain order that would really get me going. I think that's really good. And you could also exercise the odd jog, walking, finding new routes or paths from home, and sorting through clutter, which I find called mindful sorting. Beautiful. Yeah, so there's some really good tools and tips there that you guys can share with each other. And please use the chat for that. Share things with each other throughout this presentation. Anything we can do that's restful, that shuts us off from the constant input, tunes us into ourselves and helps us communicate with other people. Much, much better than just mindless, banging our head against the wall, information searching. Again, healthy body, very, very important at the moment. Think what you're eating. Avoid carb-heavy snacks during the day, particularly during the working day. They feed our stress. They just give us more energy to worry. They don't give us anything more for our brain to find things positive. Think about when you're eating. Again, try and these tips aren't from me. I'm not a nutritionist expert. We've been working with one recently. We did some presentations to some customers of ours, and I've gleefully taken a few of their tips. But they say 5 p.m. is a really good time for a snack at the moment. If you're having a good breakfast early in the morning as soon as you wake up, a good lunch in the middle of the day, then 5 p.m. for a little bit of a snack. Again, it can be a bit of a boundary. Getting up from our desk, going to the kitchen, making ourselves a little snack. I rediscovered cutting up peppers and dipping them in hummus. I haven't done that since I was a kid as well. It's really good fun. No, I think I've said two things that someone doesn't like at once then, peppers and hummus. Your mileage may vary on snacks, but yeah, all right. Big bowl of porridge starts the day, says Mark. Brilliant. Something that just feeds us is really important. Melissa said so much helpful information here. I often compare myself or my goals to my pre-MS diagnosis self. I'll be more mindful of that going forward. It's really important. We are different now than we were then. I cannot expect myself to perform in my recreational sporting activities the same as I did when I was 16, 17, 18. It's just not going to happen. But I can still enjoy it just as much, as long as I don't push those expectations too high and out of reach. Ivor says, sorry, I'm Lebanese. Nothing to apologize for. Thank you very much. Hummus with carrots and peppers is a no-no to me. Okay. What should you eat hummus with, out of interest? Are you hydrated right now? Yes. This is my cue to take a big gulp of water. Here in the UK, it's 2:38 p.m. Is there anyone here that hasn't had any water yet today? Are you going to own up to it? Are you going to go and get a glass? Thank you for owning up to it, the people that did. Thank you very much, Sarah. Go and get a glass of water after this. You need it. Your body needs it. Your brain needs it. And you'll be doing something for yourself. Now you know it's a good thing to do for yourself. Every time you have a glass of water, you're doing something positive for your body. That's a really good thing to remember. Try not to have sparkling water while you're doing presentations, though. I keep saying that, and I keep doing it every time, but One day I'll get better at that. Claire says, not enough though, yeah. Only coffee and tea. Hyper says, we actually eat it with Lebanese bread or barbecued meat. Both of those sound delicious. I would like to find some of those instead of peppers and carrots now. Sarah says, I'm trying to drink herbal tea as I struggle with water. Yeah, water can be difficult for some people. There's really good high juices and squashes and stuff like that. We just need some good hydration. And it sends really important messages to our brain. We know that. Have you moved enough today? If not, spend 5 minutes, take a little jog around your flat. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter where you move, what you look like, what kind of movement you're doing. Just move your body a little bit. And try and go outside. Like I said, we get less daylight in the morning and in the evening these days. So steal some of the daylight that work is taking from us. Go outside for 10 minutes for a break, especially if you shut the laptop, leave your phones behind on the desk, and just go out for a 5-minute walk. If you're on that 5-minute walk and you find yourself getting anxious and you're worrying and you're thinking, I could have messages, I could have stuff back home, don't punish yourself for that. That's a really important message that you've been very switched on and that actually you need more of that switching off. I know that sounds really difficult, but if any separation away from devices and emails and texts and stuff like that is causing anxiety, do reach out to us for support, but also have a think, okay, maybe it's time to start weaning myself off this a little bit. Sarah said, as a new part of my routine now is making a big pot of mint tea in the morning with a tea cozy to keep it warm, and I only need to boil the kettle once all morning. Yeah, why have we forgotten about tea cozies? I haven't used one of those in a long, long time. They really work, right? Yeah, check your body now. Give it a little check. That can be a goal. A goal could be feeling more comfortable in your body. One of the things that I find makes me feel really uncomfortable in my body is when I try and forget about it, when I ignore my body. It always finds a way of shouting at me. It's doing it right now. My right hip is telling me that my chair is at a bit of a funny angle. It's just giving me that little bit of information to move around a little bit. I can see a few of you shuffling now. Thank you. Yeah, big pot of mint tea sounds like a good part of a routine. Keep learning, and this is really going to feed our goals, the goal setting we're talking about, because learning improves our self-esteem, it keeps us connected and involved, and it helps us adapt to change and find meaning in our lives. How much better of a sentence do you ask for at the moment? I need better self-esteem at the moment because I haven't seen other people and I don't know how I'm doing. I need to be more connected and involved, and I need to be adaptable to change, and I need meaning in my life. That is a really beautiful sentence just about learning. So consistent learning has been shown to prevent depression. Start small, like with all of our goals at the moment. Just open a new book or a book that you've had on your shelves that you've been meaning to read for a long time. Open it, read the first page. If it's crap, put it down and choose another one. Don't force yourself to read things just because people said you should. I did that with Mice and Men. I did turn out really enjoying it, but it really bothered me for a long time. It was on my shelf for a long time. Yeah, start really small, or research something you've always been curious about. I know there's things I've been curious about since I was a kid. There's been things that I never really understood how they worked. Now's a good time to find out. Scott says, off for next meeting. Thanks, Harry. Stay bright, everyone. That's very kind of you, Scott. Thank you. Someone said privately, keep trying to read Little Women, can't finish it. I haven't started it. There's a couple of movies of it, though. That's got to be the same, isn't it? Sarah said, it took me 25 years to read A Handmaid's Tale. That's good. That's slow. You really enjoyed it. You took it all in. Or do you mean it took you 25 years to start reading it? Keep learning. Learning boosts our self-confidence and self-esteem. And this is really important for the goal setting we talked about. If we're doing new stuff and we're learning along the way, our confidence and self-esteem improves with every step. And that stops us from procrastinating. It stops us from avoiding things. So often we get into this negative spiral of we can't quite get into things, can't quite get started on it. And because we can't get started on it, it grows. The problem gets bigger and bigger and seems absolutely mammoth. And then we realize it's just a book. It's just bits of paper on a shelf. I can pick it up, I can open it in the middle and read a few words and close it and put it back. There's no rules for these things. So take control, put yourself back in charge and do a little bit of learning. It's really useful. And of course, it gives us hope and purpose, and it fights boredom, which is way harder than it sounds at the moment. And by fighting boredom, I don't mean that boredom is negative. I've actually found boredom to be quite positive these days. If I find time to be bored, I take that as a signal. That's my brain and my body saying, okay, I'm satisfied with all that I've done. I'm now looking for something new. If you're bored, try not to just go back to the same distractions. Yeah, this is one of the things that feeds social media quite a lot. It feeds on our boredom because it knows how easy it is for us to just get back on and engage again, and then we're stuck in that loop. If you find yourself being bored, say, thank goodness I'm bored. That means I'm empty of things. Let me try and find something to fill my time with. 3 attempts. That's not bad. Ivor says, I'm a big Agatha Christie fan. Me too. So I'm doing the Agatha Christie Reading Challenge 2021. For me, it's mostly rereading favourites, but I really recommend it. I'm going to look that up. Thank you very much. Sophia says, really relate to that. There's goals I want to achieve, and it all sounds really great in my head, but when it comes to actually starting it, I'm tired already, overthinking. Brilliant. So go back a few slides, plan, get all the things that you need in front of you, ask some questions, get involved. There's so much resource. I know I've said try and stay away from online, but there's so much resource online where there'll be similar people trying to set that goal. Even just reading a little bit is useful, but even better, engage, ask questions, get involved. Thank you for sharing that link, Ivor. I'm going to click on it now so it stays in my browser, and I will look at that afterwards. Kindness and compassion. I shared this in my last presentation too. Caring for myself is not self-indulgence, it's self-preservation, and that is an act of political warfare. Kindness to others with our friends and family in our community boosts serotonin and endorphins. It makes us feel satisfied and reduces anxiety. Remember, we're setting goals while paying attention to our emotions here. These are emotionally intelligent goals. So if I'm more satisfied and my anxiety is reduced, I think I'm gonna have a good chance of reaching this goal. Yeah. Also, I've been helping other people and being kind to myself and others. So I've got a better community, a support circle around me, so that if I do fail or if I do start to struggle, I've got people to reach out to. Really, really important. So kindness to ourselves, be honest, acknowledge what is difficult and ask for what you need. Treat yourself with kindness at all stages at the moment. This is a total antidote to fear, and it puts us back in charge. A lot of the fear we're feeling at the moment is not ours. We can hold it for other people, we can do our best for other people, but at the end of the day, we have to be back in charge of ourselves. And give yourself permission to enjoy things. I found a lot of people finding it difficult to say what they're enjoying at the moment, either because they're not enjoying very much or because they don't want other people to compare themselves to them. It's a very kind thing that you're trying to do, but actually, if I'm talking to someone I love hearing that they're managing to enjoy things at the moment. I love hearing that they're happy, that they're doing things with a smile on their face. So share that with people. Any joy you find, share it with the people closest to you. Oh, and yeah, just as a bit of a review of my favourite sleep tips. None of this will be possible on a bad night's sleep. I can't have a bad night's sleep and then get up raring to go to achieve all my goals. So we're going to eat and drink water as soon as we wake up. Try and avoid caffeine later in the day. Coffee or caffeine has a half-life of 5 hours in our body. So if I have a coffee now, 3:15, it's going to be 7:45 when it's gone down by half. That's not too bad, but maybe a bit late. I'm pushing it a bit. Try and put a little bit of a curfew in place. Try and stay away from technology around bedtime. Not only does it affect us with the light it gives out, but it also affects our brain, because usually with technology, we're looking at other people's ideas, other people's opinions, social media, the news, whatever it might be. Just take a break from that. Tune into yourself. Try and stay away from distracting things in the night, like checking the time. And if you can breathe optimally, if you can do a few breathing exercises during the day. Claire said here, I use a meditation app every night, Insight Timer. Ivor says, yes, I use Headspace. Any of those things, they involve breathing exercises usually. The more we practice that, the better we breathe at night and the better we sleep. So it's really, really good that you guys are doing that. I'll give you an opportunity to go through these in your own time when I send you through the slides, but I've presented these on pretty much every presentation I've done for the last 4 years, and I'm not going to stop. These haven't changed. Nothing's new here, but it's all really vital stuff. And for those of you that are members of CiC Employee Assistance Programme, have a look at wellonline.co.uk. You'll all have slightly different login details, so if you want to reach out and ask for them, that's fine. Or just go and speak to your HR. You should be able to find them quite easily. wellonline.co.uk. It's the portal for all of our support services. It can now be downloaded as an app onto your phone, one of those web apps that just kind of sits there. But that means that you can access all of our help sheets on the go. You can also do live chat with our therapists, with our counsellors that are waiting to speak to you on the phone. Same thing, but instead of picking up the phone, they just get it coming up on their screen and they can type to you. Really good if you're stuck in a busy household, you're finding it hard to find time to have a private conversation about your mental health and well-being. Cool. I'm going to close these slides down because that is the end of the presentation. And I'm going to end the recording now. And then we've got plenty of time for an open Q&A.